We're celebrating with Matt Zane, Society1. Check out the book, the movie, so much more. Matt, talk about this suspension. I mean, you talk about shock rock. Obviously, Alice Cooper is hanging himself on stage, the guillotine, the snake, the whole deal, kisses, blowing shit up, all this over the years. Rob Zombie's got his monsters and videos and all that multimedia show. Where did you get the idea and the concept to suspend yourself literally from hooks in your back?
I was always in the shock rock and I was very well aware of everything that had been done prior to me, especially when I discovered G.G. Allen in the early 90s. And as I said, I'm a lover of shock rock and I wanted to do something that had never been done before. And Alice Cooper once said, there's nothing else that you can do. What's a singer going to do? Cut his arm off? And I took that to heart and I said, okay, well, challenge accepted. And I wanted to be a singer that did something the first time that it had ever been done in rock history. And when I was searching for these things, I luckily met a guy when I was in the adult business called Joey Strange, who was a suspension artist. And it was completely underground. And I think maybe a handful of people in the world were doing this at the time. And I said, that's it. If I could suspend and sing at the same time, that's going to be my claim to fame. That's going to be how I make my mark on rock history. That's going to be shock rock history. Nobody's ever done it before. Alice Cooper never did it. Iggy Pop never did it. Ozzy never did it. Rob Zombie never did it. Marilyn Manson never. Nobody's ever done it. G.G. Allen never did it. And I said, this is just got to happen. And that's basically how it came about. It started as a thought, and then it was like, okay, well, let's do it.
Tell us about the process. Were you like a understudy of Strange and kind of see how it's done and take it step by step? What's the process? And where was the first time you actually tried it?
Yeah, so I pretty much was an understudy to Joey Strange because he brought me to underground clubs and I was able to see the hooks and how they went in and the mindset, the process of it, and just familiarize myself the best of my ability with everything. But there's really no practicing when you do something like that. I maybe could have, but I said, okay, I think I understand it. And I said, we just got signed to Earache Records. We're known as this porn band. It's time to eradicate that and blow it up. How do we do it? Well, we do something that's never been done in rock history before. So for the very first video, first single off Exit Through Fear on the big new label, I'm going to do it for the music video. And that's how it started. And when we announced it, everybody came out. Uranium, Metal Edge, Metal Hammer, Revolver. It was a whole thing. And people really couldn't believe what was occurring because at that time, and kudos to Marilyn Manson, he was the guy as far as shock rock's concerned. I mean, me understanding the history of shock rock knew that he wasn't doing anything that hadn't been done even a few years earlier by G.G. Allen, but nevertheless, he was the king. So when I did that, people really took notice and were like, we didn't even know this existed. Like this is just a completely different level of performance that nobody had even thought of before. And so that's how it started. It was just a music video. But then a year later, we brought it into the live setting and I started performing while I was actually suspended.
Well, talk about, the live setting. What kind of setup is needed? Is there a curtain drawn, or how do you present it, on stage to the audience, and how do you take something like that on the road?
Well, it's different for every show. So when we did the first time that we suspended, a lot of people questioned the validity of it. So we actually pierced me on stage, and they had the cameras, and everybody could see up on the screen and the whole bit. So I was pierced on stage and then strung up on stage and immediately started singing while suspended. When we did it at download, it was a little bit different because, we're on the main stage and, there's 80,000 people out there and, we can't take the time from the other bands. We're on the same day as like, um, Slayer and System and Slipknot. So they pierced me backstage, but as soon as they pierced me backstage, they played the video up on the screens And after you saw me get pierced up on stage, then I came out on stage and started performing. So it really depends. When I did the guitar suspension, I was pierced on stage, and then I actually walked through the crowd to the center of the venue and was surrounded by like 1,000 people, and then strung up, while I played. So every time is like a little bit different. It just really depends on the gig, the venue, how much time we're allotted, what the promoters want. Each one has been unique. Like I said, it really depends on what they want to allow you to do. I like getting pierced on stage because I think it's cool to see. But sometimes it's just time doesn't allow it.
Got it. Well, we'll talk about like the highlights of that. What shows, what experiences were the greatest, and were there any, mistakes or hazards or challenges or fuck ups that happened?
I've been pretty lucky as far as like there's really hasn't been any fuck ups. I mean, as far as just like memories, I mean, the first one was obviously a big deal because it's the first time that it actually happened, and nobody could believe it. Because when I would ask people, "Can you suspend and sing?" the answer was, "Is we don't know. Nobody's ever done it before." So the fact that I did that was like a big deal, but it was also a big deal because Jay Gordon from Orgy performed with me on the final song.
Uh-huh.
And this is a guy that sold millions of records. He was a massive rock star when he came up there and did that, And that was a big deal for me because it gave a lot of validity to the band, performing with a platinum selling artist. So I really hold that memory, very dear. But at the same time, when I play Download, I'm playing in front of 80,000 people. You know what I mean? Like this is like the first time anybody's suspended and sang for an entire set. It's the most attended suspension in history. I'd only had 4 hooks on my back that time versus 6 up until then. Um, you know, the roar of that crowd of 80,000 people, looking to side stage and seeing Slayer and seeing all these bands that you respect and have loved growing up, sit there and be in the crowd or backstage or side stage or whatever was amazing. So, I mean, each one has their parts. But if I had to pick like one moment out of my entire life, out of all my suspensions, out of everything, there's a lot of amazing, great moments. The download festival was definitely the one that sticks out the most. There's close seconds, but that one is just something magical. When you go watch the video of that, and you can see it in the movie or see pictures in the book, like it's really something else. I mean, I don't there really hasn't been anything like that at a festival since. Yeah, great bands, huge crowds, a lot of pyro, whatever. But as far as suspending like that, like it's never been done since then, and it's been 20 years now since I did that.
Yeah. Well, I know since 2008, you hold the record for the longest body suspension,
Yeah.
surpassing Chris Angel
Hmm.
and his. Um, yeah, it is. It is definitely intense. The first time you did it and started singing, what's the challenge? To focus on the singing or take your mind off the pain or the suspension?
I think that the main thing that I was always worried about was the adrenaline dump and running out of steam while up there and maybe going into shock.
Uh
And
huh.
that is something that I talked about with Core and Steve Joyner and Damon Pierce, my piercers with. And it was an absolute concern. And that's what I was just most afraid of, was getting that low blood sugar or, crashing up there and then having to pull me down. And it would have been dramatic and all, but I didn't really want that to happen. I wanted to be able to get through and actually do the sets.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's got to be intense the first time you try it because like you said, no one had done it before. There's been suspensions, there's people singing, but not the two at the same time. Did
Yeah,
did
and the funny part about it is, man, is that there has been a couple of people that have, and literally, I think only a couple, like maybe 2, that have tried, and I don't think anybody's been able to do it. There was a rapper about a year or 2 ago
hmm
that finally suspended, but he just did it to a track. He didn't do anything. He didn't sing. He didn't say nothing, so he couldn't pull it off. There really hasn't been anybody else that's been able to do it.
that's interesting. Yeah, I know you've set the record. You've created so much attention. for yourself and what you do. You have the movie, you have the book, everyone dies, rock stars excluded. But what is the next step? What can you do to top what you've done or extend it?
Okay, well, it's a phenomenal question. But the first thing that people have to realize is that I'm going to be 51 in a month, right? By the time most artists have reached my age, that's a wrap. And I don't mean that's a wrap from them playing or being famous. But if you look at everything of note that almost any rock artist has ever done in the history of music, it's done before they were 50 years old. So that's the first thing that people have to recognize. The first thing people ask me is, well, what's next? Well, does there really have to be anything next for what after everything I've already done? You'd never ask Robert Plant at 50 years old what's next. You're not going to ask Alice Cooper at 50-year-old what's next. You're not going to ask James Brown or David Lee Roth or any of those guys what's next. By the time it was 50, it was just about celebrating what they had already done. And they didn't do anything more after 50. Yeah, they made records and they still perform, but they didn't do anything new. It had all been done by then. You know what I mean? So I think I've done enough. With that being said, what's next? The thing that didn't make the movie that is featured on the back page of the book, when we just did our comeback show at the Whiskey A Go-Go, I was the first guy ever to have somebody come out of the crowd with a knife and cut me while I was singing on stage. And that had never happened before up until that night. Yes, people cut themselves on stage, and we can go through all of them. Iggy Pop, Darby Crash, G.G. Allen, Marilyn Manson, Sid Vicious, but they all cut themselves. That time at the Whiskey a couple months ago was the very first time anybody ever came up out of the crowd and cut a lead singer while he was singing. And we actually captured it on film, and that's going to be coming out as a live show documentary next year, and it's called Rise from the Dead. And it chronicles the comeback show at the Whiskey and then some things that happened after the movie was released. So that's up in the queue as far as something that's coming out next year. Prior to that, we're doing another music video and song this weekend, but everybody does music videos and songs. I think when I get asked that question, most people go, well, what are you going to do that hasn't been done yet? So I only bring that point up because that happened, and that's going to be obviously featured in the movie. That's never been done before. But as far as coming up with something new now at this point, I don't know. It's going to be tough. When I had the girl cut me from the crowd while I was singing, I was like, wow, I've pulled it off one more time. The press ignored it and wouldn't comment on it and, whatever. Prior to that, we did a music video called Lose Your Faith, where I was the very first singer ever in the history of rock and roll to deface a Quran. And that never happened before, ever. And that was so controversial that every single website refused to report on it, except for one, MK Ultra. And if they did talk about it, they refused to play the video for fear of backlash. The last time somebody that in general defaced the Quran, they were murdered in Europe. And I did it in a music video. Bands have been, anti-Christian and anti-Bible doing stuff to the Bible for 20 years now, 25 years. I was the first guy to ever bring it to the Quran. That never happened. And that's not really well known because people rejected it and said it was too much. So I just mentioned two things since the movie and the book that have happened. So maybe I'll think of something more for the next one. But who knows? But that's already two things that at 50 years old that I did that had never been done before that pushed music and shock rock into a place that it had never existed.
Well, you made a very good point. Alice Cooper doesn't do anything new, but he celebrates what he's done.
Yes.
And his most popular songs are from the early days, the
Yes.
original Alice Cooper
Everybody.
group. So, it's really not necessary to keep outdoing yourself like a G.G. Allen and be on a suicide mission or a Sid Vicious. It's, I think at this point, just great to celebrate that history, that legacy that you've had, and just put the focus on the music and just keep
Well,
coming up with great music.
well, for me, it is a celebration, and I absolutely agree with you on that. But we celebrate it by trying to bring the people the closest show that we can from 20 years ago. And that's exactly what Kiss did when they came back. when they realized that they were a legendary band and everybody wanted to relive 1977. And when they came back, they put the makeup on and all four members got together and they came back and celebrated that era. What we do now is we make new music, but we celebrate the era without dying or going to jail. And we try to bring the people that show to the best of my ability at this age. And obviously, it's going to get lesser and lesser as time goes on. So that's the way that we think about it. But if I get a new idea like the defacing the Quran or having the girl cut me or whatever, we'll throw it in there. You know, there's always room to add to the legacy, but we think about it in terms of a celebration and to bring people a show that's reminiscent of all the stuff that people watch on TikTok. Because that's basically what really happens. They see the old clips and they go, "Oh my God, like look at this guy. What is this microphone with a dick on it? And why are all these girls sucking it? And we still have the dick mic, it's over there, and we bring it on stage still." And then they go, "Oh, he's singing upside down." And you know, if I can still pull it off, we do that, you know, or whatever, you know, like
Yeah.
so the last show that we did, the comeback show, we brought back the jockstrap. Now that's not new. Like, you know, Gigi Allen's been performing naked forever, but like we used to do it as well. In the last song during a Gigi Allen cover, we unveiled the sarong and I had my ass hanging out on stage. You know, again, that's not groundbreaking. I recognize that, but we used to do that 20 years ago. People saw the TikToks and were like, "All right, you want to see my ass? Here you go. Relive it, you know, before it gets too saggy in my old age." So that's the idea. But yeah, it's about the music still, but it's about, you know, still just celebrating everything that's happened. But even more than that, putting the movie and putting the book out and doing interviews like this and talking to people to make them realize that it actually happened. Because the unfortunate part is that mainstream music press, they want to make sure that you don't know that it happened. And that's really about kind of why we're still doing what we're doing. It's about telling the stories, telling the legacy, and then getting out there live and showing like, yeah, this really happened. This was a real thing.
Well, you're definitely a groundbreaking, artist. You have a vision. We thank you for all that you've done, and we're super excited about what's left to come. And the music is at the core of it all. Society One is the band. Matt Zane is the man behind it. Matt, we can't thank you enough for joining us, talking about this. I'm going to watch the movie. I'm going to reach out to you. We're going to have a little follow up. I want to encourage everyone to see the movie. Everyone Dies. Get the book. It is a visual representation and companion to the movie. And I know you're going to be entertained, exhilarated, shocked, and most importantly, uh, inspired. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to get back with you. And
Thank you.
please
Thank you so
keep
much.
strong and
Appreciate
keep
it.
rocking.
Thank you.